Welcome those waiting for a Matrix video, we missed you so much. Who is Agent Smith? What was his purpose? Was he right in his struggle? If you're ready, let's take an in-depth look at Agent Smith, one of the coolest villains in film history, brought to life by the legendary performance of Hugo Weaving. Stand up your seats and fasten your seatbelt. To understand who Agent Smith is, one has to rewind the story a bit again. In the opening scene of the movie, you remember that the room where Trinity was in the Matrix was being blockaded by the police. At that time, the Trinity was watching the Neo, whom Morpheus thought would be their savior in the future. Of course, everything Morpheus and his crew did in the Matrix was considered a legal act, because they were hacking systems. According to the people who live inside the Matrix, these are ordinary hackers and they need to be caught. But the agents knew that they were actually a group of resistance fighters who were rescuing people from the Matrix. We can understand that Cypher was actually selling the crew from the very beginning of the movie. Because Trinity said, "Are you sure this line is clean?" Cypher asks. After saying, "Yes, I am sure, of course," the police had already surrounded the Trinity's place. When Trinity is caught in room 303, Agent Smith and other agents arrive on the scene, and we see her for the first time in this scene. In a dialogue with the lieutenant who led the operation, the lieutenant said, "We can deal with a little girl. I sent 2 teams, now they take him down." When Smith said, "No, your lieutenants are already dead," he said. Because Agent Smith knew how dangerous the Trinity was. Indeed, as Agent Smith had predicted, Trinity immediately neutralized the teams and a chase began on the roof. Here, when Trinity jumped an impossible distance, as in Morpheus' jump schedule, and then the agent chasing him jumped across the same way, just as ordinary police crews who were not part of the Matrix system could not believe what they saw. One of the policemen there uses the phrase, "This is impossible." Look, there are some implicit expressions and explanations in the movies. We are in the first scenes of the movie, and a girl who looks ordinary and an agent who looks like an ordinary jump from one building to another. Here, as a spectator, we are unfamiliar with the Matrix universe and we have no idea what's going on yet. In such cases, directors usually give us clues by making such side characters talk. "This is impossible" means there is something wrong here, something unusual, something out of the facts we know. After the chase, the Trinity manages to get out of the Matrix, and one of the agents calls Smith. "Our informant is real." That is, they confirm that the Cypher is collaborating with the agents. In the beginning we see 3 agents: Agent Smith, Agent Brown, and Agent Jones. Now, agents are on-duty programs linked to the Matrix system. In Matrix, they are what they are, a normal agent compared to others, but their main task is to protect the Matrix system to ensure the continuity and order of the system, to catch the programs that escape from being deleted and to prevent possible anomalies in the system. When they learn that with Cypher's notice, Morpheus and his team are trying to reach someone known by the nickname Neo, to catch the programs that escape from being deleted and to prevent possible anomalies in the system. When they learn that with Cypher's notice, Morpheus and his team are trying to reach someone known by the nickname Neo, named Thomas Anderson, they come to catch him at his workplace to prevent this threat before it occurs. For failing to follow Morpheus' instructions, the Neo is captured by agents and interrogated by Agent Smith. We are starting to get to know Smith better after this interrogation scene. Of course, at this point, we, as the audience, do not know what the Matrix and Agent Smith, which is a part of it, but at least we learn something about the character of Agent Smith. In the scene where they caught the Neo just before him, only the Agent Smith noticed the Trinity waiting there, even though he was overlooked by other agents. So the message that Agent Smith is different from other agents is also given here. More intelligent agent than others. We will come to this later. In the interrogation scene, it is easy to see that he is a different person from the speeches of the Agent Smith, the way he emphasizes the sentences. He is well dressed, extremely polite, and his speech is clear and understandable. He is not just someone who does his duties like a robot like other agents. He talks to people and empathizes. He addresses the other person as "you." After expressing that they knew that Neo had another life beyond the standard business life and that he had committed many illegal acts as a hacker named Neo in his life, he takes off his glasses when he says, "You are here because we need your help." This means to establish a closer communication with the other person in human relations, to remove the distance and the barrier to some extent. Smith gives us many details with his gestures and movements in this interrogation scene. My partners think I'm wasting my time doing this, but I'm sure you'll want to do the right thing, he says. In other words, he is someone who does not resort to brute force in the first place, but tries to reach a solution by talking and communicating. He offers to cooperate with Neo to reach Morpheus, erasing all criminal records and giving him a clean start. On the other hand, Neo insults by saying, "I'll give you this, and you give me my phone right." Even in the face of this act, Smith, who does not compromise his gentleness, wears his glasses back. What do we understand from here? Now he has blocked his communication path. Now it is necessary to put that distance in between again. In short, Agent Smith says, "I tried it once like a human." They then put a monitoring program inside the Neo and send it off. Here, in fact, one of the questions you asked me before is answered. When someone sees something strange in the Matrix, what happens to that person? Like what happened to the police officers who saw the agent and the Trinity jump from building to building? What do they think when they see this? There are similar things happening to them as well as what happened to Neo. Neo changed the form of his mouth to keep him from speaking and put a bug inside, right? Neo saw all this, but then suddenly awoke in his bed. So he thought it was all a dream. Agents have some power in the system. In such cases, they can interfere with the Matrix reflections of those people so that people do not notice the Matrix. These include things like erasing certain parts of the memory, putting them to sleep, controlling dreams. In other words, it is about making agents forget what they saw or pretend not to be real in these situations. Just imagine that there are no such agents around us. Programs that prevent us from seeing the facts. So if Neo was a threat, why didn't they kill him on the spot and just chase him? As Morpheus said, "They reached you before me, but they did not understand how important it could be. If they knew what I know, you'd probably be dead." Later, we see Smith in his training program, and when Neo asks what he is, Morpheus explains what he knows about the agents. He states that they can enter and exit the programs connected to the system, so everyone who cannot be saved from the Matrix is a potential agent. We survive by hiding and running from them, but they are the gatekeepers. They have all the keys, they hold all the doors. Sooner or later someone will have to fight them. He then tells Neo that anyone who honestly attempted to fight an agent paid for it with their lives and adds, "You will do what they cannot do." Later, Morpheus tells Neo to him, "I saw an agent punch a concrete wall, all their bullets on people dumped, but they hit nothing but air. But their strength and speed are still limited by the rules of this world. So they will never be as strong and fast as you." Neo, "What do you mean, can I dodge the bullets?" When he says, Morpheus, "No, it won't be necessary when it's ready." Because Morpheus is someone who knows what anomalies called the Chosen One are capable of. He states that the chosen person has the power to change the Matrix and that agents can break the rules that must be adhered to. I will discuss the strength and speed of Neo and Agent Smith and the changes they went through in the following parts of the video. Now let's continue the story of Smith from where we left off, scene by scene. The next place we see Smith is where they secretly meet the Cypher at a restaurant inside the Matrix. Here I want to touch on another subject. In this scene, there are those who claim that the movie made a logical mistake. So who put the Cypher in the Matrix? How did the Cypher enter the Matrix by himself, without an operator, since Morpheus' crew had no other villains than the Cypher? We know that the people who have been removed from the Matrix, more precisely those who are qualified to join the crew, are usually people who are already involved in hackers or computer systems in their lives before they were removed. If not, they develop these abilities during their time in Zion. Because the ship's crew needs to know this information to get people out of the Matrix. In the scene just before the scene where Cypher meets the Agent Smith, Neo comes to Cypher because he cannot sleep late at night, and the Cypher wakes up when he first sees him. Because at that hour he did not expect anyone. And pay attention, when the Neo comes, the Cypher turns off the monitors on the left because it was making adjustments that would automatically load itself into the Matrix. It's that simple. Let's go back to the stage now. Here the Cypher asks the Agent Smith to erase his memory and put his body back in a powerhouse in the fields and reload it into the Matrix. He also says he wants to be a rich and important person in the Matrix. For example, an actor. Smith, on the other hand, with his kindness as we know it, says, "Whatever you want, Mr. Reagan." In return, Smith asks for Zion's access codes. From here, we get a little more understanding of Smith's powers and what he can do. It has some powers not only inside the Matrix, but also outside it. It also has the authority to send sentinels in the real world. Agent Smith also sent those sentinels that were the first time we encountered in the first movie. Agent Smith has more power than the other two agents. Later, Agent Smith captures Morpheus, and while interrogating him, we learn about Agent Smith's true purpose. After talking to Morpheus about the history of the Matrix and how the early versions were frustrated, he says that humanity is an outdated species, just like dinosaurs, and that the future belongs to machines and artificial intelligence. He suggests that humans are a species that spreads just like a virus and continues to spread until it consumes all resources, a disease that needs to be treated. He then wants to be alone with Morpheus and dispatches the other two agents. Then he takes the beans out of his mouth. He expresses his hatred of the human species and that he can no longer tolerate it in the Matrix, that he no longer wants to stay in this system, he wants to be free. So how can this be? Why would a program want to go beyond its mission? To understand this, we must look at the second Renaissance episode of the Animatrix. According to the information given to us by the Zion archive editor, the human first built the machine that resembles himself and designed it as an artificial intelligence that he can improve himself to do his work better. But this situation was both the peak and the end of humanity. If you remember, it was a house-made robot numbered B166 that caused the consciousness level of the robot was now refusing to enslave people. All other robots that were able to make their own decisions also saw that the future of humanity was a hopeless case and took control from humans. After installing and developing O1, they produced their own artificial intelligence. In other words, they actually made the mistake of the first human species. Because the architect himself admitted that it was impossible to establish a perfectly precise equation. Contrasts in the system disrupted the equation and led to anomalies. Although this probability is 1%, it still happens one day. Just as the anomaly of the sixth version of the Matrix was Neo, the anomaly of the assigned programs created by the architect would be the Smith. It became painful to stay permanently inside this Matrix, which he called the zoo. Smith is a program that has existed since the first version of the Matrix. So he knew the progress of humanity well and hated them to death. He was saying that people are a species that does not even accept a world that was designed as a paradise for them, and establishes its reality through pain and misery. So, unlike other spy programs, Smith didn't want to be a part of the system and actually wanted to be like a human, although he hated people. Throughout the series, we actually witness the humanization of Smith and the mechanization of Neo. When he first came to the Neo Matrix, he was very humanly responsive. But as he met with the Oracle and struggled with agents, he became more and more robotic. He had been serving the Prophet's directions like a puppet. Morpheus' original purpose was to eliminate the Matrix, but what the Neo did served to preserve the Matrix. It was Smith who actually tried to destroy the Matrix. Therefore, it would not be wrong to say that the main chosen person is the Smith. But this was not the case from the beginning. Whatever happened happened when Neo got into the Smith at the end of the first movie. Before moving on to this topic, I said that I would come to the point that Agent Smith is smarter, stronger and more talented than other agents, if you remember at the beginning of the video. This is due to the fact that Agent Smith's artificial intelligence has improved itself in the direction of observation. Agent Smith had the ability to predict the course of events by establishing a causal relationship, just like the Oracle. To understand this, I can give examples of the following scenes. Here the Smith was chasing the other agent Trinity on the roof while he anticipated further, entering the body of a truck driver near a potential phone booth where the Trinity could eventually exit, almost capturing the Trinity. In another scene, while the other two agents are chasing the Neo, instead of chasing the Smith, he looks up and finds the Smith waiting in room 303 where he will enter, doing a mathematical calculation of the Neo's movements. Yes, we know enough about Smith now. Now let's take a look at the story of the Smith after he did not return to the source and became an exile program after he was tried to be erased by the Neo. Because the real events start after this point. In the second film, Niobe and other ship captains share the information that, according to Osiris reports, The machines are digging from the surface to the Zion and they will reach the Zion within 72 hours. Meanwhile, the Agent Smith arrives at the meeting place and leaves a message for Neo. One detail stands out here. The plate of the vehicle Smith used is 5416. This number indicates a passage in the Old Testament. The book of Isaiah, 54th chapter, verse 16. Here, their embers I created the craftsman who blows guns. To bring down the devastating man I also created it. Isn't that great? The message is thus given that Smith is now becoming a devastating force. He's not the old Smith anymore. Later we see that Neo feels that the Smith is coming. Because the Neo's codes that intermingled while trying to destroy the Smith formed a bond between the two. Later, Smith sends a message to Neo and says, "He gave me freedom," and sends the headset he used as an agent connected to the system. Then 3 new agents appear at the door. Agent Jackson, Agent Johnson and Agent Thompson. Neo calls them new releases, and beats all 3 without difficulty. Then Neo flies away with his enhanced powers and Agent Smith appears. But this time we see that there are 2 of them. Operator Link says something went wrong after agents appeared in the Matrix broadcast and the codes got mixed up in a way he hadn't seen before. So now the Smith was slowly beginning to disrupt the system. Later, the Smith catches the person named Bane, who is about to move from the Matrix to the Zodiac, at the last minute, and here we see that the Smith has now acquired a new feature. Now Smith could manipulate the reflections in the Matrix and change their codes with his own. Thus, Smith managed to infiltrate the Zion through Bane's body. Later, when he begins to use Bane's body, we see some masochistic feelings develop in him. As an agent attached to the Matrix, he does not feel pain, so he tastes and enjoys what pain is like in a human body. Later, after meeting with the Oracle in the Neo Park, the Smith arrives in his new form and expresses himself in detail to the Neo. "Are you surprised to see me?" Neo says, "No," when he says. Obviously he felt that Neo Smith was not extinct. Here we see that Smith's view has also changed. The green-toned suit he wore while part of the Matrix was replaced by a black suit, and his glasses were replaced by glasses with sharp angular lines. We can easily understand that these reflect changes in character. Later, Smith states that, as Merovingian says, being aimless and uncaused is powerless and now has a purpose. Later, other programs that he assimilated begin to come in one by one. Later, he tries to copy the Smith Neo as well but fails, and then we witness one of the best fight scenes in the history of cinema. Neo begins to fight all of the Smith's clones. Transforming the other agent who was there at that time, Smith attacks the Neo with all his might. Later, they manage to drop the Neo for a moment and they all pounce on it, and as he told the Neo in the first film, Smith says, "This is inevitable." Later, the Smith confronts Neo and Morpheus at the entrance to the Source. "This is the difference between you and us. I was waiting for you," he says to Neo. As I said at the beginning of the video, the Smith could see the Neo's movements very well, but the Neo could not. Smith put it sarcastically in this wonderful line, "All your muscles work well, except for the most important one." If I were in Neo's place, I would do harakiri after this phrase. Even the man's sting is elite. Later, when Morpheus pointed a gun at Smith, he said, "Don't stop, shoot, my best feature is many-me," saying that he had no longer needs the skill of dodging bullets. Later, while the captains of the ship were preparing to launch an attack to prevent the machines from reaching the Zion, we learn that one of them fired the EMP gun and caused 5 ships to be shattered by the machines. It was none other than the person Smith controlled who did this. Later, Smith began to assimilate the system's powerful programs one by one to achieve his goal. First Seraph and Sati, then the Oracle. Smith began to implement his actions one by one to achieve his goal in both the Matrix and the Zion. Deciding that the place to go to end the war is the City of Machines, the Smith who managed to infiltrate Neo and the Trinity's ship takes the Trinity hostage, telling Neo, "To predict your actions this world is as easy as any other." Indeed, he could read Neo like a book. Smith after this fight, Neo lost his eyes and destroyed the Smith inside Bane. But of course Smith lost only one copy. Smith could not be destroyed that way. Then, going to the City of Machines, Neo came across the Deus Ex Machina and offered them an offer. He said that after Smith destroyed the Matrix, he would come to destroy the City of Machines as well, and that he was the only one who could stop it. I have explained this in my previous videos. In fact, this was all part of the Oracle's plan. You can watch this in my video titled Big Plan of the Oracle, so I won't go into it now. In short, Smith had reached the peak of his power and had copied millions of people inside the Matrix. Neo entered the Matrix for a final battle with the Smith and saw that the whole city was full of Smiths. When Smith copied a program, he was also copying its features. In this way, Sati's ability to regulate natural events made the city extremely rainy. Unlike the fight in the second movie, the other Smiths would only be spectators this time. He would fight the Neo alone over the Oracle's copy. He could already see the movements of the Neo, and after copying the Prophet, he saw the fight he would now win. We can summarize Smith's life in 3 stages. The Agent Smith, who is part of the Matrix, the Agent Smith, who takes on the virus character, and the Agent Smith who has become an anomaly that will crash the system. Because of the design and the architect's system, Smith's power eventually matched the power of Neo. Now he could do everything he could, including flying. But the two sides could not annihilate each other because the equation was trying to equalize itself. After a long and very devastating fight, Smith could not understand why the Neo was still fighting. Why did Neo keep doing this even though he knew he would be defeated no matter how hard they fought? Freedom? Real? Maybe peace or love? Illusions, Mr. Anderson, delusions in perception. Temporary delusions produced by weak human intelligence who desperately justify an existence that has no meaning or purpose, and they're all as artificial as the Matrix. Anyway, only weak human intelligence could produce a poor concept like love. You can see this, you need to understand this now. You can't win, fight is for nothing. Why Mr. Anderson, why? Why are you stubborn? Because I chose this. Later, in this scene, Smith tells to Neo, everything that has a beginning has an end, Neo. This is a very fine detail. Because for the first time, Smith uses the name, Neo, instead of Mr. Anderson. Because the one who said this was actually the Oracle. He told Neo that I will come as far as you go despite realizing the trap. Smith succumbed to his ambition and began copying the Neo. Smith hated humanity so much, and the Neo's senseless resistance drove him so crazy that he could not hold back. We can understand Smith's ambition here from the following scene. Look here, although normally it is enough to put a part of his hand to transform someone, we see that his entire hand is stabbed into the Neo's chest. When Neo realized that Smith was right from the start, that this was inevitable, and that the only way to destroy him was to destroy him too, he did not resist Smith and allowed him to copy himself. When the Neo's codes, which were connected to the Matrix through the City of Machines, became the codes of the Smith and all the Smiths were collectively linked together, the source reached all the bodies that the Smith was infected with and deleted it from the system. Smith thought humans were incapable beings who did not deserve to live, and planned to move forward until nothing was left of him. Perhaps he would have succeeded if he had not fallen into the Oracle's trap. But although Smith hates people, it was human behavior that made him lose. He told Morpheus that humans were a primitive species that spread like a virus, but he himself spread like a virus. He found the people's desire for freedom meaningless, but at some point he also fought for freedom. And it was the human feeling that brought it to an end. He was captured by the sentence he told Neo in the last fight, "It was your life that taught me the true purpose of life. The purpose of life is to end."